archaea have a very wide range of habitats. One group of archaea can grow and can live in extremely high temperatures. They live in very hot water. They are called thermophiles. Thermophiles means heat lovers, okay? Another group is the extreme halophiles, means they are salt lovers. And both of these you can see if you go to Yellowstone National Park, you will see these water puddles there. They are bubbling. They're so hot, it's like boiling water. And you see different colors, greenish, yellowish. That's because of different bacterial colonies, and they just love that high heat. Okay, they say there are warning. Please do not go near them. If you just even dip your finger, it will all flesh will be gone. Even the bone gets dissolved. It's sometimes the salinity is so high, the temperature is so high, but the bacteria they can just survive in there. A third group of archaea, they are the methanogens, which live in oxygen devoid of environment which is no oxygen, and they give off methane as a waste product. So that's why methanogens, because they're giving off methanes. And they are usually abundant at the bottom of the lakes and also in the digestive tract of animals. For example, you might have seen these pipes in landfills. These are for collecting gas generated by the methanogenic prokaryotes or archaea from a landfill. What will we do with this methane gas? Source of energy. To different forms of energy, just like your windmills, just like your solar panels, anything. Methane can be used to generate energy. So then we're done with archaea. That's one kind of microbe, right? That's a prokaryote. The next kind of prokaryote is bacteria. Okay, and bacteria that cause disease, they are commonly called pathogens. So most bacteria, most pathogenic bacteria, they produce a poison. That's how they give us disease. So what is that poison? Those are toxins. There are two types of toxins, exo and endo. So these two kinds of poisons are what give us diseases. Exo means outside. So these are proteins or toxins that bacterial cells will secrete out into their environment. So they just secrete it out and then they spread it to your host, spread it to the host, and the host gets sick. The endotoxins are lipids, okay, components of the cell wall of gram-negative bacteria. Bacteria can be, if you stain them, they come out as two kinds, gram-positive and gram-negative. Gram-negative bacteria do not stain blue. Gram-positive bacteria stain blue. Gram-negative bacteria have a thinner cell wall made up of peptidoglycan, which is less in amount, while gram-positive has more. So because gram-negative bacteria has less peptidoglycan, it has an extra layer. And that extra layer makes the bacteria resistant to all the antibiotics that we use. So the gram-negative bacteria are more dangerous to us than the gram-positive ones because they don't respond. Okay. So endotoxins are chemical components of the cell wall of the gram-negative bacteria. And these endotoxins, when bacteria secretes that and the bacteria has attacked us, it's inside our body, it's going to give us fever, aches, or sometimes even cause a drop in the blood pressure, okay, leading to septic shock. So endotoxins are usually liberated when the bacteria die and the cell wall breaks apart. You see here an example is the bacteria that causes meningitis. You know what is meningitis? What is meningitis? No? What are meninges? Meningitis is an inflammation of the meninges. What is meninges? Meninges are the layers of membranes that cover the brain and the spinal cord. There are three layers, okay, that cover our brain. So whenever there is an inflammation of those membranes, that is meningitis. Meningitis can be very dangerous, and that is why you might have seen in infants receiving vaccines for to protect them from meningococcal infections. So sanitation is generally the most effective way to prevent bacterial disease. And of course, the use of antibiotics. A third defense is education. Those are three most important things. In developing world, sanitation is a big issue. Not so much here in the US because we usually have sanitary practices, but in the developing world, overpopulation and all bathrooms, sewage are not really those are big problems. So sanitary disposal of human waste is a huge problem. Second thing is education. Even in US, people are not really very educated about how to prevent infections. Like when COVID spread, and a simple thing that doctors and scientists were asking was to put the mask on. There was a huge population that was protesting against it, right? They didn't want to. Somehow, it was as if they refused to accept or refused to believe that protecting mask is going to help you and help others. So even if you have COVID, you wear that mask, you are at least saving a near and dear one, a family member or a friend from getting the infection. There's no harm. Just put that mask on. And it is one of the most developed countries in the world. And yet we didn't want to do that, right? So education, teaching children science from when they are little, getting them interested in science, making science understandable in simple words, giving them, which is actually something that I find very lacking in this country, because I have my school education from another country. My daughter grew up here, and I was very shocked at the lack of any science education in elementary school. There was like nothing. So I remember myself, those days learning a lot more science than my daughter did in her elementary school. So this is a Lyme disease, a bacterial disease which is transmitted by ticks. So if people know, they have the education, they have the information, then they can protect themselves. Now, potential of some of these pathogens, that means disease-causing bacteria, to cause serious harm has led to evil minds using them as biological weapons, right? We can use anthrax as a biological weapon. You remember those mails that came a few years ago? These were mailed from the same place, and these went to multiple addresses in US. People received these mysterious letters, and as soon as you open this letter, because it has anthrax spores are very light, you open it with the air, it just spreads, and if you breathe it in, that's the end of it. You get very serious infection, you might even die. So endospores of the bacterium that causes anthrax, that can be used as and that has been used as a biological weapon. Another dangerous bacterium is Clostridium botulinum. Okay, this is also produces an exotoxin, and this gives serious breathing problems and other kinds of problems to people who have breathed it in. Okay, so are intestinal microbiota to blame for obesity? There was a very simple experiment done, because nowadays it is known that our intestinal microbiota makes us susceptible to what our body weight would look like. So they took 4 pairs of human female twins. Okay, so female twins meaning because they were genetically very identical. However, every pair of twin, one of the twin was normal weight and the other twin was obese or overweight. And then they took the feces, let's say, okay, from these female twins, and they isolated the bacteria from these two, from each pair, and then they injected the bacteria into mice. So you see here, this is the lean twin, this is the overweight twin. They have extracted the bacteria from the waste, from the feces, okay, made them harmless, so that you're not spreading any disease to the mice, and then they take the fecal transplant, okay, of the bacteria, and they inject it into the body of the mice. And they found they have used 4 pairs of twins in every single case. The bacteria which were taken from the feces, from the stool of the obese twin, ended up making this mouse also obese. This mouse would maintain their normal weight, healthy weight, while this mouse would become obese. So what is the conclusion? I have said this before, now you tell me what's the conclusion? These bacteria made the mice obese. Then you tell me, what is the conclusion of this experiment? Yes, Luke?
That the microbiota affects obesity in humans.
How? By
the methods in which they buy it.
By metabolizing the food that the mice are eating differently, right? So this mouse and this mouse is being given the exact same food, and yet this mouse is becoming obese, this mouse is not obese. Why? They are metabolizing it differently. So the microbiota, they affect our body weight, they affect so many things by changing how we metabolize our food. Okay, what is retained, what is eliminated from the body. So protists, that is the only eukaryotic group that also is included in microbes. They evolved from prokaryotes about 2 billion years ago. As I said, the protist is not one group, it's a mixture, it's a catch-all category, it has everything, but protists they are eukaryotic. Most, but not all protists are unicellular, okay? So they are mostly unicellular, but it could also be multicellular. It's multicellular. So we have plant-like, animal-like, and fungus-like protists. Photosynthetic protists means they are the algae, okay? Singular is alga, which also includes cyanobacteria. They are the plant-like ones. Other protists which are animal-like, they are heterotrophs. Some are fungus-like, okay? Others could be even parasitic. Some of the protists could be parasitic, means they derive their nutrition from the body of another living organism. Some protists could be mixotrophs. Mixotrophs means a mixture of plant-like and animal-like. This is animal-like, this is plant-like. These are some examples. This is an autotroph, means making their own food. This is the plant-like protein. This is a heterotroph, animal-like, a parasitic. You see this one? This is a parasitic worm. Can anybody tell me what is this one? This red one? So red blood cells, the donut-shaped cells, and this is a very dangerous parasitic worm in Africa. It's called trypanosoma or trypanosome. And this is a mixotroph, okay, Euglena. So habitat-wise, because protists are a catch-all category, miscellaneous group, their habitats are also diverse. If they can be autotrophic, if they can be heterotrophic, if they can be parasitic, that means they can be present inside the body of a living organism. They could be existing independently outside and making their own food. They could be living on the body of another organism. They are found everywhere. Okay? Most protists are aquatic. Some are found almost anywhere where there is a moisture. Some others live a symbiotic life, that means reside in the bodies. So the classification of protists is still not done. It's work in progress. Now protists that live primarily like animals, okay, that usually ingest food, they are called protozoans. So protozoans again thrive in aquatic environments. Protozoans that live as parasites in animals cause some of the world's most harmful diseases, okay? You see a diversity of protozoans here. This is a flagellate. You see the flagella. Scientific name is Giardia. Okay, this is a forum. This is an epicomplexan. This is a ciliate. A ciliate, why? Because this is an organism that has cilia all around it. You see the small, short hair-like structures? This is a cilia. And amoeba, does anybody know? Has anybody heard of amoeba? Amoeba is like gel-like thing, okay, but it's a living organism. If you throw it here, it would fall like a blob, and amoeba moves just by gel. It's kind of like they extend a part of their body. It's called a pseudopodia that comes, and the whole gel-like material moves like this. So that is an amoeba. This is another flagellate called Trichomonas. So these are different types of protozoans. So protozoans means the animal-like protists. Now, what are the different kinds of protozoans? One group is called flagellates. Any protozoan that moves by flagella is a flagellate. Any protozoan that moves by cilia is a ciliate. This is the classification, because they're so simple that the classification is also simple. So the protozoans that move by flagellates, most of them are free living. That's why they have this long tail-like structure and they're free to move around because they have to go in search of food. That's why they need a lot of mobility. However, there are also some parasites like Giardia, okay, which is waterborne, gives diarrhea. Very common in Asian countries, in African countries, and so on. Amoebas, these are characterized by great flexibility, and as I told you, they look like gel, okay, and they move by extension of their gel-like body. The one that extends out is called a pseudopodia, which are temporary extensions. Pseudo means fake. Pseudo is fake, podia is foot. So fake foot, that means just the body is temporarily extending it, that looks like a foot and then back. So those are amoebas. Let's see this video here.
Amoeba proteus is a large unicellular organism that moves over its substrate by sending extensions of its cytoplasm, called pseudopodia, in various directions. The pseudopodia can surround and engulf food by phagocytosis. The leading edge of the amoeba is a clear zone that seems devoid of cytoplasmic organelles. This is called the ectoplasm. The ectoplasm contains large amounts of actin, the contractile protein common in animal muscle cells. The rest of the cytoplasm is called the endoplasm. During amoeboid movement, endoplasm flows forward to fill an extending pseudopodium and is then converted to ectoplasm just below the plasma membrane. Ectoplasm flows backward around the outside of the cell and is then converted back to endoplasm, a cycle that continues while the amoeba moves. Credit, Henry Mainwaring.
So this was how an amoeba moves. Then the next group are called the epicomplexans. They are all parasitic and some can cause serious human diseases. Plasmodium is one of that. Plasmodium is the parasite that causes malaria, right? Malaria is a big killer in Africa and it's making a comeback in a lot of Asian countries because last few decades people were able to control mosquito, but now that the mosquitoes are becoming resistant to all the chemicals that we use, mosquitoes are coming back with a vengeance and they are bringing the plasmodium back. Toxoplasma is another one which requires a feline host to complete its complex life cycle. Okay. Now ciliates are those protozoans that have those short hair-like structures called cilia, and they provide movement. They move like oars of the boat, so they help the organism to move. They are mostly free living. Whenever you find a good deal of locomotion, a lot of those organisms are free living. However, biology is known as the science of exceptions, so there will always be some exceptions. Even in our human body also there are so many exceptions. So there will always be some exceptions, mostly non-parasitic ciliates, such as the paramecium. This is an example. Let's see how long is this, so you can see how the paramecium moves.
Paramecium moves by coordinated beating of its many short cilia. The cilia form longitudinal rows along the entire body of the cell and into the oral groove. The beating action of the cilia moves the paramecium forward and backward. It also produces a slow rotation of the cell as it moves through the water. The cilia in the oral groove propel food particles into the cell mouth, where the food can be ingested by phagocytosis. Credit, Graham R. Kenton.
Do you remember a particular organ inside our body that has cilia? Actually, there are many places where there is cilia inside our body, human body. But an example that I might have used many times in this class. Yes, go ahead.
No, I don't know. I was thinking something in the throat, but
In the trachea, in our breathing tube, there is cilia. Why? Because when we breathe in air, along with the air, there are a lot of things that we don't want, bacteria and other harmful things that are going in. Yes, Willow?
Our intestines?
There are some places in the intestinal, in the reproductive tract, fallopian tube. If you see when the egg rolls down the ovary, okay, so as it is more, you will see a lot of cilia there, which help in the movement. Similarly, in the trachea also. Why? Because in the trachea, the body is trying to protect the lungs. So in order to prevent harmful dust and debris and bacteria from getting into the lungs, our body, our respiratory tract produces a lot of mucus. And the job of the mucus is to bind to the dust and the debris. And then we don't want that mucus to go into our lungs. So what happens is those cilia, they move the mucus up. So all the dust and debris which have been captured by the mucus is being pushed up by the cilia, and it comes here where there's a joint, common space between the digestive and the respiratory tract, and we usually we cough it up. It goes into our digestive tract, and our digestive tract is well equipped to get rid of that mucus-coated bacteria and mucus-coated dust and debris. So then finally, slime molds. These are multicellular protists, which are like amoebas, feed on dead plant material. Two distinct types of slime molds are there: the plasmodial slime molds and the cellular slime molds. Now, plant-like protists are the algae. These are protists and cyanobacteria whose photosynthesis supports food chains in fresh water as well as seawater ecosystems. So researchers are currently trying to harness their ability to convert light energy to chemical energy to produce biofuels. There's a lot of effort being made because we are running out of our fossil fuels. So we need alternative sources of fuels, and seawater, algae are being tested to produce biofuels. Now, many unicellular algae are they are components, they make up the phytoplankton, okay? They are microscopic photosynthetic organisms. You might have seen whales eating, they feed on phytoplanktons, a lot of them. They drift near the surfaces of lakes and oceans. There are some species like dinoflagellate species that has a characteristic shape. Another variety of this phytoplankton is called diatoms, which have a glassy cell wall, and the green algae, which are named for their grass green. So these are three different varieties of the phytoplanktons. These are just some videos showing that. Now seaweeds, all of us have seen seaweeds here. These are large multicellular marine algae that grow on rocky shores. Okay, very similar to plants. They're very much, a good source of proteins, probably food for future. When we run out of food, when we run out of space on earth to grow food, then our future generations will be eating this. It will be insects, and these seaweeds are going to be our primary source of nutrition in future. Okay, so seaweeds are classified into three main groups: green, red, and brown algae. Okay, so the brown algae are known as kelp. Anybody here has been to any kind of aquarium, like the Pacific or the Monterey Bay? You will see in those glass aquariums huge seaweeds kept there. So you see here green, red, and brown algae here. Now I was talking about biofilm forming species of bacteria. Okay, these are called Streptococcus mutans. These thrive in anaerobic environment. Anaerobic means when there is no oxygen, such as the cracks in your tooth enamel. These bacteria, they use any kind of sugar, and they will just use whatever you have eaten, whatever sugar is there in your food, and these bacteria are living in the crevices of your teeth, and they will take that and they will make a special kind of polysaccharide which will help them to glue themselves to your teeth, and they will build up deposits of plaque that is harmful to your teeth. Now within this fortress that they have created for themselves, the Streptococcus mutans will now ferment the sugar. Fermentation, if you remember, is a kind of anaerobic respiration. So fermentation, they would obtain energy, and because it's anaerobic, lactic acid would be produced as a byproduct. And this acid, because of the low pH, would attack the tooth enamel. Eventually, it will eat up your tooth enamel and will create cavities there. And then when cavities have been created, then other bacteria which could not do it themselves, now they have entrances because the Streptococcus has created it for them. Now they can enter your teeth because there are cavities, because the lactic acid has eaten up the tooth enamel. So this is how they are harming us. So this is evolution connection, the sweet life of Streptococcus. It's very bad for us because we are being attacked, our teeth is being damaged, our teeth are being damaged. However, from the bacteria's perspective, it's a huge survival advantage to Streptococcus mutans. It can do that. So what are the adaptations that gave Streptococcus mutans an advantage over other species? Researchers found out that more than a dozen genes that improve the ability of this bacteria to metabolize sugars and to survive increased acidity. They have mutated genes that can metabolize, that can break down that sugar, and although they are producing large amounts of lactic acid, which is eating up the enamel of your teeth. Teeth are the hardest structures in our body. So even our enamel cannot withstand that much of acidity, but those bacteria can. Bacteria are flourishing in that acidic environment. Okay. What caused this? Mutations. What helped this? Natural selection. Natural selection for their survival. So chemical weapons produced by S mutants that kill harmless bacteria. So they also have competition. One bacterial population is fighting, against another population. So they have other competitors, other bacteria. So they are competing for space in the limited terrain of the human oral cavity because they can survive in that highly acidic environment. They produce a lot of acid. A lot of other bacteria, they die in that highly acidic environment. But so now they've killed their competitors. And now all the resources are for them only. Okay, they have all the space in the tooth. They have all the space in your oral cavity. And we are done with this. That was last. We could stop the recording. Any questions?